Okay, hello all. I am here. This is Dr. Annette Feravich with the classroom. I'm here with the classroom. I was going to say that you email me if you want. So I'm here and you can get a hold of me if you want. And I was going to just run that ticker since I had my screen a little bit smaller. So for any questions, comments, whatever that you've got, or if you've got if you're looking for some of the worksheets or handouts or things that I've had, Dr. Dr. period Feravich, F as in Frank, E-R-A, V as in Victor, I-C-H, at healthymindbodyspirit.net. I am sorry, but I had to stop for a minute and actually get something to eat because I was working late last night and didn't get a lot to eat yesterday, and then started working early this morning because I had to go and get some court stuff done this morning because we're about ready to go to trial about some of these mysteries things that have been going on. So the judge is going to hear some of the issues that I've had going on, and if you can believe that, not a single dropped frame today. Not one dropped frame on my internet. I had a long talk with Xfinity yesterday. I told them I had cybersecurity issues because of my neighbors, and all of a sudden today, not a single dropped frame. I had 26,000 in one session, and I had thousands every single session. Every session, not one dropped frame. So thank you, Sheriff's Departments, because I know you issued that ticket on purpose so that I could get in front of the judge and talk to them. But it's kind of a pain in the butt as well, because, and these are philosophical things, because they have put me in a bind over here relative to my job, and now I have to jump through hoops in order to do this as part of my job. So they have succeeded in making matters worse relative to my employment. And that is the legal system for you, instead of worrying about the widow, But this is a way to get some answers, especially from Oakland County Sheriff's Department. Don't know where your head is in all this, but I know it's not where it's supposed to be. Philosophical discussion on, and this really is, as I always bring it right back, I always say, and it really does have everything to do with it, even if it has nothing to do with it. But it does. It has everything to do with what we're talking about, because we really are talking about the rise of the proletariat. Or the rise, the overtake of the proletariat. We got to figure that one out, don't we? The working class. That's got to be the proletariat. So the rise of the proletariat. Yeah, social class of wage earners. Those members of society whose only possession of significant economic value is their labor power. That's a proletariat. So the working class is the proletariat. So rise above the proletariat. Me, working class, trying to rise above this nonsense that we see going on. All right? And I started reading, as you know, Erich Fromm's book on disobedience. He is a psychoanalyst. He was a psychoanalyst, right? And I didn't realize that he talks on Marxism on chapter 3. So I was loving it for the essay on disobedience, and then finding who your true self is. You're disobedient to those pressures that don't allow you to live out your true self, right? So this is making sense to me. Then I hit chapter 3. I'm like, what? And it's actually called The Application of Psychoanalysis to Marx's Theory. So I know people, if you didn't hate it enough because it was Marx's theory, now we're talking about psychoanalysis of Marx's theory. Could you hate it anymore? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're like me. And I was really, look at this. So just look at the highlights that I have on this. It's like I use discretion in my highlights because I need to be able to reference my highlights, so I use discretion. Look at all of these highlights. All those highlights. That's probably where I stopped there because I had enough information to be able to do this class. But I'm learning as I teach, and that's kind of the person that I am. I just want to make sure. I'm sorry that I'm drinking something in front of you. Like I'm really right in front of you, drinking it, slurping it, delicious. But I had to get up this morning for a court appearance because of all the stuff that was going on. And then I ended up getting to bed late last night working on this to make sure I can get up early for the court appearance. Okay. So I'm sorry. I have to get something in my stomach. I was like, in the last one. Let's get to it. I was just reading, and loved what I was reading. Because we don't talk about it, right? We don't talk about it. So this is on disobedience and other essays from Erich Fromm. And I like that picture there because it really is a topic on whether or not we are, just machines is really what it is. And what type of machine are we? Are we going to be a machine for somebody else? For the man is what we used to call it. Are you going to be a machine for the man? Or are you going to be a machine for yourself and create, a better vessel, better health, healthier mind, healthier thinking, healthier emotions, and that allows you to be creative. And the way that we do that is by identifying our needs and then meeting those needs. If we couldn't meet our most basic needs, Fromm says, we would go insane. And of course we would go insane. We absolutely have to meet our needs. But there are two ways we meet them. And believe me, they are met. The needs are still met. But it's whether or not you end up getting any real benefit, consequences, fruit, whatever the word is that you want to use out of meeting your need. So you can meet your need in a destructive way. I have a need for love, and so I'm going to go out and I'm going to have sex with somebody. A destructive way to meet your need for love. But you can do that, right? So we can meet our needs, but if it's in a destructive way, it clearly will not, it's just a pacifier for that need, right? Which is what we see a lot of. We see a lot of people pacifying their need for love with fleeting relationships, including fleeting sexual relationships as well, right? There is a portion of the need that is met, even in a destructive way, that keeps us from going insane because the need is met. But it's just a slow burn, isn't it? It's just a slower trip to insanity. And I know that because I see these perverts around me who are completely satisfying their needs, their higher order needs, with all of these lower order things. Physiological safety needs, right? I need money, so I'm not afraid. So fulfill that need in any way that is possible. And so that's what we're seeing. So many people fulfilling their needs in destructive ways that are only getting partially fulfilled. And you can see then the outcome, the spewing of entitlement, hate, the spewing of, just bulldozing, bullying, right, of other people in order to demand that their needs get fulfilled, and foolishness because they simply won't, which is the reason why we see these kind of tyrannical people around. Okay. Where man becomes human, during its unfolding, he develops his powers of reason and of love until he creates a new harmony between himself, his fellow man, and nature. The new harmony is described as the end of days. I kept this one up here. We have said that because we just don't see the end of days as being this harmony. But of course it is, because what occurs after Armageddon is to bring about a peace in this harmony. We talked about this. There were two things on this that I realized that I did not talk about, and those were the difference between hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. So we see hedonic happiness floating there on the left-hand side, which is basically covering our basic needs. And then we also have this eudaimonic happiness. And eudaimonic happiness fulfills our psychological and our self-fulfilling needs. So when Fromm is talking about the idea that we are disobedient to all of those pulls, right, all of those pressures from outside of ourselves that demand our resources and that demand our time, what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to rise above those demands in order to fulfill not only our psychological needs of love and belonging, right, but also to fulfill at the top level there our purpose. Now, I talked about that with you on Thursday already, so we've gone over that. The thing I wanted you to recognize here is that both hedonic and eudaimonic needs that are fulfilled will bring us happiness, okay? So if we have our basic physiological needs fulfilled, when we have those needs fulfilled, it does bring us happiness at that time. So on a scale of 1 to 10, those who have hedonic needs fulfilled and those who have eudaimonic needs fulfilled score about the same on levels of happiness. That's kind of interesting, I think. Let me get a drink. It's my protein drink. So, got everything in there, including some fiber, which is what we all need in our diets. More fiber. So what they did was they surveyed individuals and they had questions that satisfied psychological needs and self-fulfilling needs, right? And then they had questions that satisfied your basic needs down there. And then they asked those individuals basically how happy they were. But they also divided them then into individuals who scored higher on the hedonic needs, the basic needs, and those individuals who scored higher on the eudaimonic needs. They were driven more by eudaimonic happiness than they were the basic needs. Both of them scored approximately the same on their levels of happiness, but the difference was in their levels of health. And this is why we call this, what we're talking about, really well-being, because it's not just an element of how I feel. It's a real evidentiary, real proof, real demonstration of happiness is when we are also healthy. That means our choices are not just making us happy in our minds. It's a reality because our bodies are physically happy as well because they're healthy, okay? That's where we saw the difference. Those individuals who focused on fulfilling those basic needs there at the bottom, those hedonic needs, those individuals were less healthy than individuals who concentrated on fulfilling their psychological and their self-fulfilling needs. Their level of health was much greater, much healthier than those individuals who focused on the hedonic needs. And this is important because we are seeing real differences in this journey and how you choose to have your journey unfold. Are the end of days going to be filled with harmony for you, or are the end of days going to be filled with trials and tribulations? What are they going, and certainly for all of us, both of them, but will they end up fulfilling you in these healthy ways that really give you joy, as we were talking about in the spiritual classroom? Do they really give you joy? Okay. And we did talk about this. People think that to love is simple, but that to find the right object to love or to be loved is difficult. And that was also from Erich Fromm, The Art of Loving. And it is, as I said, we mentioned this and talked about it on Thursday, it is difficult to find the true object of your love. We can fall in and out of love all day long, it seems, but to find the real object of our love is something different. Okay, Tiananmen Square, we said on disobedience, any system that claims freedom but stamps out disobedience cannot speak truth. You really should If you don't know about Tiananmen Square, it would really be a good idea for you to really look that up. Because again, as I remember it, it was just such an amazing atrocity to have a government actually on camera turn against their peacefully protesting citizens. So that is really a government that is stamping out truth. And again, there is no freedom, but of course that's not what they're looking for, right? I read this, and this is where we left off on Thursday, was this aim of the humanistic socialist, according to Fromm, is to build an industrial society whose mode of production shall serve the fullest development of the total man, and not the creation of homo consumens, that's what it is, consumens. That socialist society is an industrial society fit for human beings to live in. I haven't changed yet. To live in and to develop. And that really sounds like, again, it's the top of that pyramid is what we're looking for. So if we are to believe that this is the aim of socialism as quoted or as summarized in this way by Fromm, but certainly is what Marx is coming from Marx's own words, this is what socialism is about. It is about humanity. It is a social program, not social giving. Somebody taught you it's social giving. It is not social giving at all. It is the man, becoming industrious enough so that they can rise to their own enlightenment, their own fulfillment, to the top of that pyramid. That is socialism. Why hasn't socialism worked? Because socialism doesn't look like that. Socialism doesn't look like the group for the group. It's capitalism. It's capitalism or it's communism, but it hasn't looked like socialism, except for in the countries where it's working and we say it doesn't work. Like in Sweden, like in Denmark, socialism has worked. They lie to you when they say it's a system that has never worked. They lie to you. What socialism is taking your taxpayer dollars and giving it back to the people so that they have a more productive life. All across the board, children who are more productive, who are happier, who are healthier, parents who aren't led by the nose, who aren't led by the most current trends, who aren't led by the immediate need in society. That's what they're talking about, that socialism is. It's feeding the spirit to rise to the top of that pyramid. And if you've been taught anything else, what you've been taught is a system of socialism that really is guised in dictatorship, in superiority and a hierarchy. This is for the people. There is no place for a hierarchy and for classism in a system like this. And isn't that what we're looking for? Those people at the top certainly do not work harder. Those people at the top certainly do not work harder. They are not working harder. We did not see the past president work hard at all. We saw that past president campaign. And we saw that past president on the golf course and worried about his assets. The same thing he did before he came to the biggest, most important job in the world, doing the same exact things, not treating it any differently. So a system that is not based on self-interest alone. And capitalism is simply based on self-interest. It's based on a consumer model. All right, so in this chapter, Fromm introduces a few characters. And what the first character he introduces, and I'm not honestly sure because I haven't gotten through all this. I had enough to do with trying to digest all of this. So I want to say there were three characters, but I have a feeling that there's more that are going to come out, and these three characters are just part of one sort of episode that he's trying to talk about. So the social character is basically based on the questions of who is man and what is the meaning and aim of man's life. So what we find out from social character is what is defining character of the time. What is our social character of the time? Our social character of the time is what is our meaning and aim in our life right now. So this social character is defined and reinforced by, for example, our educational system. This is what Fromm said, and then we'll throw in social media there as well, of course. So our social character is being shaped by what Fromm is saying, by our educational system, by songs, by jokes, by the news, by political positions, politicians, but most by our parents. So, what is our social character? Finding out who we are. It is shaped by our educational system, by our jokes, by our songs, by our music, by our political system. We find out our meaning, and it sort of is exclusive to the times because it's based on all of those social commentaries, all those social pressures that we have. The social existence of those things, right? So, but most important, meaning and aim in one's life is most defined by our parents. Now, let's stop right there in the philosophical discussion, all right? Are you a parent? And would you say that you are the biggest influence in shaping your child's social character? That more than your child's music, that more than what your child jokes about, that more than your child's education, that you as a parent are the one that is shaping your child's social character. Okay, and remember that you're shaping that character is also based on parameters that you had no control over to a great degree as well, right? So your child's social character is shaped by your social character, which was shaped by your music and your jokes and your educational system. But today, beyond his writings from the 1950s, we've got social media now. And now, what are we seeing? And that really deserves some real philosophical discovery, some philosophical discussion, doesn't it? How is social media shaping your child, specifically social character? And then the question becomes, is it influencing your child's social character more so than parents, than you as a parent are? Now, as a psychologist, I think about that and I think, well, when you become a teenager, it is your peers who do shape your social character. But hopefully you are, and I'm actually thinking about this as I'm saying it, but hopefully you are making those choices of your peers based on the young childhood years of the parent then shaping the social character of the child. Okay, so let's think about that for a minute then. The question is are you shaping your child's social character, or is, in this day and age, the big question is, or is social media shaping your child's social character? And if it is social media, when your child is 12, 13, 14 years old, that's not so unusual. It usually is the peers, right? Your peers, but it's social media now that is presenting this peer group to your children, right? So not so much the one-on-one peer who's standing next to your child doesn't have quite the influence that the social media now has on your child. And so then when we think about that in these broader terms, when my child becomes a teenager, they are less influenced by the parent and more influenced by their social situation, as it should be, We're finding out who we are through our peers and then through relationships, typically with an opposite sex partner. We're figuring all of that out, right? But if the parent who has their own social character based on all of these things is not forming the social character of the child, and neither is a physical relationship, a face-to-face relationship with their peers, you have opened up a world now building social character that we've never seen before, with what amounts to almost zero parameters, right? There are zero parameters. You can get your hands on any piece of information. Some of it's harder to get your hands on, but it doesn't even seem like it's really that hard in this day and age to get your hands on what would even be illegal information, right? So there are no parameters now on the teacher of social character, and the way that the trends are, it wouldn't be the parent in the teenage years anyway. So we can clearly see that we are building social character based on social media. And that is a scary, scary prospect. I have to get a drink here. Okay. So really, philosophical discussion, check. This is a check and balance. We're supposed to be finding our triune over here to help us check and balance, because there's no way in this day and age that we are clearly able to build social character the same kinds of weaponry we used in the past to build social character. Things like, guilt and shame and punishment. But, seriously, there are consequences, natural consequences to building a social character that just wasn't conducive to being social, right? There were consequences that we simply are not seeing in this fake world of social media that has no parameters. Let's see what else I wanted to say on this. We change our social character when we are no longer served by the economy or its ideas. We change social character when we are no longer served by the economy or its ideas. If we cannot change to meet our needs, that society dies out. Okay. So if society is meeting our needs, there is no reason for me to change society. I set out to change society when it is no longer meeting my needs. Okay. So the economy is no longer serving me. Then I want to change my social character, right? Change the system of things, change my social character so that the economy meets my needs better. If I can't change enough to have the economy meet my needs, obviously, what's going to happen to those people who have those needs that aren't met? They're going to die out. That's what's going to happen. Social character changes when there are new productive forces, technology, and when there is a conflict between inhuman social conditions and unalterable social needs. I want to show you something in this book that Fromm points out, okay? And I thought about putting this in a slide, and I was like, I can explain it, but now I'm thinking that it might be a little bit better for you to see, and it's just simple words is all, but I want to show you how he presents the words. Okay, so we can see right over here, what he's got here is he's got economic basis, social character, and ideas and ideals. What he's saying is social character, this way, social character feeds our economic conditions or our economic basis. It also feeds us below on our ideas. So social character then feeds the economy, right? If I'm diligent, I'm going to work hard. If I'm not, I'm part of a peasant class or a different character, according to Fromm. I'm part of a different character. Okay. But when my character is industrious, I feed the economic basis, right? If I'm not industrious, I might die out, right? Because that's not what this system needs. This system needs somebody to feed the economy, and the system needs somebody then to that social character will then bring about new ideas that help what? Feed my character, that help me find out my purpose, what is my journey, that also build the economy as well. All right. So it is this system that feeds and is dynamic on one another. Each of the components feed on one another, but really the basis of it is social character, which is defined by society and our parents. If it's defined well, I will work well in the economy, and my ideas will also be ideas that mesh with everybody else's. If my social character is out of line, I can't make it economically, I don't understand your ideas, and that I will become extinct. That class, that character, whatever that is, that can't make it economically and ideologically will disappear. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we are talking about this social character, all right? And how it feeds the ideas that I have about myself, but also these economic conditions. And then as far as social character and a healthy system where there's an economic feeding and then there is feeding of ideas, a person must want to do what he has to do. A person must want to do what he has to do. If I have to take out the garbage, for me to really build social character, I have to want to take out that garbage. Now, that's a very small thing, but think about it in terms of working at a factory, right? I have to want to do that work at a factory. Let me see what's going on with Lucy. I worry about my neighbors. That's why I have to pay attention to her, because I worry about my neighbors and what they're doing there. Dropped frames, 0. Not a single dropped frame today. Not one dropped frame after I saw the judge yesterday. Actually, the magistrate. Working on this. Okay, Lucy. Shh, 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 shh. Good girl. Good girl, little Lucy. She sees something going on. Okay, all right, moving on. So that is social character. That's really what we work for when we are trying to build on a healthy society. There is also, I put this here as a different kind of insight for this social character, which is part of a social system, socialism, that works, that would work, all right? We're not saying it does work. We're saying social character that feeds the economy and feeds the humanity of the person, feeds their ideas. They are considering the human needs and unalterable human needs. That's a society that flows. And what occurs in that society is physical energy or toiling is turned into psychic energy. And this is where psychodynamic theory meets Marxism, okay? You can hear the flavor of Fromm in this, using this his theories on psychodynamics. So the person changes. There's a changing based on drives and pressures. That's psychodynamic theory. The person changes based on drives and pressures. Those drives very often are biological. They're innate drives that are just right. Like so we turn a certain age and all of a sudden our hormones start firing up and we're interested in other people sexually, right? That is a physical process that we go through, a natural maturation, a physical process that we all of a sudden hit this certain age and then this is what occurs. So we are driven by biological needs. If I'm hungry, what do? If I'm hungry, I go get something to eat. It drives me to go find food, right? So we have these innate drives inside of ourselves. If I'm unhappy, I'm driven to find happiness. Okay, we have these innate drives, natural drives inside of ourselves. And these then, the physical toiling that we have produces energy. And that's psychodynamic theory. Psychodynamic theory is based on theories of energy and entropy and things like that. So energy can never be what? It can be transferred, but it can never be what? I don't know. Wasted. That's not it. But it transfers states, right? It transfers states, but it's still energy. Unless it's burned. I don't even know. Then you have ashes. Is that energy? Changed into heat is what it did. The energy changed into heat, into gases, things like that. Okay, so get off on a little physical tangent, biological tangent. So physical energy, this theory is based on the dynamics of physical energy, which then turns into psychic energy. And this is, it seems like it's so silly and so simple, but the importance of this is that just like when we were talking about motivation in our critical thinking, we need to get started with motivation by doing an act, a physical act. And the concept is the physical act turns into psychic energy. It turns into an internal way to feed my spirit. So when things are working so that my social character is feeding the economy and also my ideas, my humanity, then I am capable of taking my physical labor, the worker, the proletariat who's producing, take my physical labor and turn it into psychic energy so that I am what? In smallest terms, I have joy, I have peace, I have understanding, right? And some of the smallest terms. But in the largest terms, I have those things across my lifespan, right? Across my lifespan, that I can produce work, I can toil, and it produces psychic energy that allows me to what? Learn and then create. It allows me to create. Okay. So there's the social character. Then there's the peasant character. And you can see that this peasant character is not feeding the system. And it's why the peasant character is going to become extinct. The peasant character doesn't feed a system, not the economic system or a system of ideas and humanity. The peasant character, as defined by Marx and then seen through the psychoanalytic eyeglasses, is individualistic, stubborn, hoarding, lacks satisfaction, finding satisfaction in anything, lacks cooperation, lacks punctuality. None of those things are going to contribute to a working economic society. A person must want to do what he has to do. A peasant character doesn't want to do what he has to do. Why? Because all the peasant character does is exist to produce. So there is no transference of the toiling to psychic energy. Why? It appears to me because the toiling is basically not generous. The toiling, it seems to be, has to give back to the economy and has to give back to ideas, which gives back to me, the toiling turns to psychic energy. It seems as if the peasant character can't get psychic energy because the toiling is individualistic. It's selfish because the toiling has absolutely zero need for the economy or zero need to produce ideas. That's the peasant character, right? So the peasant character's toiling does not produce psychic energy because the peasant character is so self-involved. It seems like psychic energy must have to be produced then from what I'm saying, it must have to be produced by an understanding of things that are outside of ourselves. That is learning, and the only way that we can create, right? To have this understanding of things that are outside of ourselves. Okay, all right, moving on. The lack of any kind of possible cultural stimulation, the resentment against their situation, which is one of being left behind by the forward moving currents of their society, the hate towards those who destroyed the images which once gave them pride, have created a character syndrome which is made up of love and death, necrophilia, intense and malignant fixation to blood and soil, and intense group narcissism, the latter expressed in intense nationalism and racism. Expressed in intense, I think that should be intense, nationalism and racism. I typed this up, so that's why there's mistakes. Not because Fromm had mistakes. I'm going to read it again. So the peasant character is a lack of any kind of possible cultural stimulation, so the toil doesn't turn into any psychic energy. The resentment against their situation, which is one of being left behind by the forward moving currents of their society. The hate towards those who destroyed the images which once gave them pride, have created character syndrome which is made up of love and death, necrophilia, intense and malignant fixation to blood and soil, and intense group narcissism, the latter expressed in intense nationalism and racism. Does that sound at all familiar to you? Does that sound like the society that we live in today? It sounds like it to me. That we have become so obsessed by the destruction of the figures or the idols that we have taken so much pride in that it has made us nationalistic, narcissistic, racist, and necrophilias are dealing with it is the life and death of necrophilias is sex. It is construction, and it is complete destruction, whether it is in love, which is sex, or it is in death, having sex with somebody who is dead, necrophilia. How are both of those things placed in the same context? Love and death, necrophilia, in parentheses, necrophilia, because the love is bringing about death. Why? Because there is no love in simply having sex. There is no love in just the animalistic drive to have sex. There is no love in that. So it is as destructive as having sex with a dead person, because you cannot procreate. That's what the richness. I hope that this is not boring you, because the richness in this language just blows my mind, right? How are you talking about love and death as necrophilia in a peasant character? Because the love drives us to death. It is the love is so destructive. That's why this kind of peasant love is built and based in a foundation of destruction. Okay, and so a character syndrome made up of love and death. Sex 1 minute, crying, depression, anxiety, death, suicide the next, right? Heavy, animalistic love 1 second, and necrophilia, death the next. Intense and malignant fixation to blood and soil. What did we see on January 6th? A malignant, mal meaning bad. Okay? That's what we saw on January 6th, this fixation to blood and soil, to blood and land. That's exactly what we saw there. A territorial riot is what we saw there for blood and soil. There was blood and soil there, right? So that's what we saw there. So clearly seeing exactly what Fromm and Marx was describing as the peasant character. An intense group narcissism. Exactly what we saw on January 6th. So this rising up of this peasant character. Why? Because their economic needs are not being met and their ideals, according to them, are not being met. And and transcending time then. Okay. The industrial character. Now this industrial character, so we've got the social character, which has human needs and economic needs. And this industrial character really is the proletariat, okay? So the social character is worried about something that is ephemeral, that is beyond our senses, where the industrial character is really just more focused on the basic needs. They cooperate, they're punctual, they're disciplined, they believe in teamwork. Okay, but a person must want to do what he has to do. And the industrial worker just does it because he has to do it. The main goal is not to own, but to consume, and thus to compensate for his inner vacuity, passivity, loneliness, and anxiety. This person has fulfilled the economic needs, but has not fulfilled the humanitarian needs, the needs for ideas and to support ideals. So the industrial character will not become extinct because it's feeding one of those needs. The peasant character will, feeding none of those needs, must become extinct. The industrial character will not, feeding the economic needs, but not feeding the humanitarian needs, becomes passive, becomes apathetic, goes through the motions. And we clearly see that that is what is going on today. Individuals who are going through the motions. So that is our industrial character. And is that it? That is all that I have for you today. So we are done a little bit earlier than what I expected, but no big deal because yeah, we're gonna do I'm finished. I'm not worried about that. There are some things I could talk about, but I think we're all set. So we're done quite a bit early today, and we will not be back in the philosophical classroom until day 8. All right. So we're on lesson 5 of the philosophical classroom, but we won't be back here until Thursday, which is day 8. All right. And so I see I have the reading room up here, and I should not have the reading room up there. We're about ready to get ready for the reading room. All right, so finish a little bit early. We probably will have probably 1 hour on the philosophical classroom. I'll probably do one more adjustment to our timeline, shortening the classes up just a little bit because that's a long, like I said, it's a long day. I will be back here at 4 o'clock for our reading room. In fact, I might be back here a little bit earlier than that. We'll see. I'll probably be back here at 3:45 for our reading room. And maybe that's the way that we're going to do it. I think that's how we're going to do it. We're going to end philosophical classroom at 3:30. No, we have to have an hour for the philosophical classroom. Even though we didn't need it today. We'll see. We will see. I will be playing with this idea, and I will be back in 10 or 15 minutes for our reading room. All right. See you. Thank you so much for joining me.